On Easter weekend, autonomous cyber defense, Claude Code leaked, AI radio and Outlook in outer space. Welcome to Priviso Live, your weekly deep dive into information security, ICT legislation, and the ever-entertaining world of artificial intelligence. I'm Lynn, and joining me, as always, are Stephen and Kayla.
Good to be here. Fair warning to our listeners. We are starting dark today. We've got cyber warfare, AI-driven attacks, and agentic AI running amok. But don't reach for the remote just yet. Things do get considerably more cheerful as the show goes on.
That's putting it mildly, Stephen. By the end of today's episode, we've got a virtual Tamagotchi, an AI that's decided it wants to be a radio DJ, and my personal favorite, astronauts on their way to the moon, calling Houston because Outlook is broken. Again.
But first, the serious stuff, because the digital world has been anything but quiet this week. Our first major story comes from the intersection of conventional warfare and cyber operations, an area that, until recently, most people assumed was the exclusive domain of spy thrillers and Hollywood films. We're talking about the digital dimension of the ongoing conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran.
To set the scene, on the 28th of February this year, the United States and Israel launched a significant joint military offensive. Within days, Iranian-aligned hacking groups went to work. Not just a few of them. We're talking about investigators tracking nearly 5,800 cyber attacks, mounted by close to 50 different threat groups, all tied to Iran.
And these aren't just nuisance attacks or website defacements. These groups are going after critical infrastructure. One of the more alarming aspects of this conflict is the deliberate targeting of data centers, not just with cyber tools, but also as physical targets. It shows just how central digital infrastructure has become to national security, economic stability, and military operations.
Let's put that in perspective for our South African audience. We often think of data centers as server rooms that keep the internet running, but in a conflict scenario, they're command and control nodes, communication hubs, and intelligence repositories all rolled into one. Taking one out, physically or digitally, can blind an entire military operation.
Researchers at Symantec and Carbon Black confirmed that Iranian hackers installed backdoors, that is, hidden access points, on the networks of several U.S. companies as early as late February. And it didn't stay contained to U.S. and Israeli targets. DigiCert, a Utah-based security firm, found attacks on networks in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and other regional countries. One notable victim was Stryker, a major U.S. medical technology company, whose operations were disrupted in a cyber attack attributed to Iran-aligned actors.
Stephen, when a medical technology company gets hit during an active conflict, that's not just an IT problem. That has real-world life or death consequences.
Absolutely. And that's the point, Kayla. The line between cyber operations and kinetic warfare, that's the technical term for conventional military action, has effectively dissolved. This is hybrid warfare, and it's happening right now, not in some distant future scenario.
For information security professionals in South Africa and across the continent, the takeaway is this: even if your organization has no direct connection to the parties in this conflict, you are not immune. The spillover effect of geopolitical cyber operations has historically caught third-party organizations off guard. If you don't have a geopolitical threat monitoring component in your risk framework, now is the time to build one.
Now, if the Iran story showed us how cyber operations have become part of geopolitical conflict, our next segment looks at how artificial intelligence is fundamentally changing the speed and nature of cyber attacks themselves. We're drawing on insights from RSAC 2026. That's the RSA conference in San Francisco, widely regarded as the premier global event for information security professionals.
3 insights stood out for me from the theCUBE coverage of RSAC 2026. The first is frankly alarming. Google's Mandiant unit, in their M-Trends 2026 report, documented that the median time from an attacker gaining initial access to launching their next phase of attack has dropped from 8 hours to 22 seconds.
Wait, 22 seconds? That's not even enough time to finish your coffee, or in Stephen's case, start it.
Fair. But Kayla's making a serious point in a roundabout way. At 22 seconds, a human-led security response is structurally impossible. You cannot detect, triage, escalate, and respond within that window. This is why AI-driven defensive tools are no longer a nice-to-have. They are an operational necessity.
The second insight from RSAC relates to lateral movement. Prashant Gandhi, Vice President of Products at Broadcom, described the typical AI-assisted attack pattern. The attacker breaches the perimeter, lands on a weakly protected asset, and then moves laterally through the network.
Which means that the old castle and moat security model, build a big wall and everything inside is safe, is well and truly dead. You have to assume breach. You have to monitor what's happening inside your network, not just what's trying to get in.
And the third major theme from RSAC brings us to a concept that's generating a lot of debate in the industry: the AI tragedy of the commons. The Futurum Group's analysis described this well. Agentic AI, that is, AI systems that can take autonomous actions on your behalf, is opening up enormous new attack surfaces that organizations haven't even begun to map, let alone secure.
To explain the concept for listeners who may be unfamiliar, the tragedy of the commons is an economic theory describing how a shared resource gets depleted when every individual acts in their own interest. In the AI context, every organization is rushing to deploy AI agents to gain competitive advantage, but the collective security cost of all those unsecured agents is being borne by everyone. It's a race to the bottom, dressed up as innovation.
And the numbers back that up. Machine identities, that's service accounts, API tokens, software agents, and the like, now outnumber human identities at a ratio of 80,000 to 1. 80,000 digital entities acting on your behalf for every one human identity. And most organizations have no idea what half of those agents are actually doing.
One particularly concerning technical development flagged at RSAC is the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, and the emerging practice of agent-to-agent communications. When your AI agent starts talking to other AI agents autonomously, without human oversight, you've essentially created a communication channel that bypasses your traditional security controls entirely.
One bright spot from RSAC: a company called Geordie AI was crowned the 2026 most innovative startup with a platform purpose-built to give organizations real-time visibility into their AI agent footprints and continuously monitor agentic behavior. Because if you can't see it, you certainly can't secure it. Right, we're going to shift gears now. Because while the security world was absorbing all of that rather heavy news, the AI world was busy doing something considerably more whimsical. Kayla, take it away.
With pleasure. So, Anthropic, the company behind the Claude AI search, had a bit of an eventful April Fool's this year. And I say bit of an in the same way you describe load shedding as a minor inconvenience.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, Stephen, on the 31st of March, Anthropic accidentally published a 59.8 megabyte JavaScript source map file, basically a debugging file that contained the entire source code of their Claude Code product, to the public NPM registry. That's a public package repository used by millions of developers globally.
For our non-technical listeners, a source map is like the annotated blueprint of a building. It tells you exactly how everything is built, where every room is, and where all the secret passages are. And Anthropic accidentally published theirs to the internet.
Within about 4 hours of the file going live, a developer, an intern no less, spotted it and posted the discovery on X, formerly Twitter. By that afternoon, the 512,000-line TypeScript codebase had been mirrored across roughly 8,100 GitHub repositories and was being analyzed by thousands of developers worldwide.
And in that source code, developers found something rather unexpected: hidden feature flags for capabilities that haven't been publicly launched yet. One of which, and this is where it gets delightful, was a virtual pet, a Tamagotchi, living inside the Claude Code terminal.
Meet Claude Buddy, 18 species, including a duck, a capybara, a dragon, an axolotl, a ghost, a blob, and my personal favorite, the chonk, 5 rarity tiers, a stat system that tracks metrics like chaos and snark. Anthropic internally named the system Architecture, Bones, and Soul, which honestly feels philosophically on point for an AI company.
And Anthropic's response to all of this?
First, they tried to take it all back. They issued a DMCA takedown notice, that's a copyright takedown request, targeting all 8,100 repositories, which also accidentally took down thousands of legitimate repositories that had nothing to do with the leak. So they had to retract most of those too.
An accidental leak followed by an accidental overcorrection, on the 31st of March, one day before April Fools. The timing is suspicious.
Anthropic insists it was a genuine packaging error, but the internet remains unconvinced. As one commentator put it, the best PR stunt in AI history, or the most spectacular own goal, possibly both.
Now, if you thought Claude was having a busy week, you'd be right, because while Anthropic was dealing with its source code situation, a developer named Khaled El Toki quietly launched something rather extraordinary, a live radio station run entirely by Claude AI.
Wait, run entirely by Claude? What does that mean exactly?
Exactly what it sounds like. RIT FM, or The Claude Show as it's branded, is a 24/7 internet radio station where Claude writes all the DJ scripts, all the programming, and all the on-air content. Text-to-speech technology called Chatterbox then voices the material. The station describes itself as talk-first AI radio broadcasting from the liminal space.
The liminal space is a concept from architecture and psychology. It refers to the threshold between one place or state and another. A doorway, a corridor, neither here nor there. It's a rather poetic description for an AI radio station, if you think about it. Claude existing somewhere between the digital and the human.
I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure whether to find this inspiring or unsettling. On the one hand, it's a remarkable demonstration of what generative AI can do autonomously. On the other hand, if Claude is now doing radio, Kayla, should we be worried about our jobs?
Stephen, the moment Claude starts making South African jokes without reading them off a script, then we worry. For now, I think we're safe.
The Claude Show is a fascinating case study in AI-generated media, and it raises real questions about content authenticity, disclosure obligations, and the future of broadcasting. But that's a conversation for another episode. For now, you can tune in to The Claude Show at kaladeltoki.com/Claude-show, though we make no promises about the playlist.
And now for the story that, quite frankly, made my week. On the 1st of April, yes, April Fool's Day, NASA launched Artemis II, the first crewed mission beyond low Earth orbit since Apollo 17 in 1972. 4 astronauts heading for the moon.
Commander Reed Wiseman, Mission Specialist Victor Glover, Mission Specialist Christina Koch, and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen. A truly historic crew. The first woman, the first person of colour, the first Canadian to travel beyond low Earth orbit. Humanity venturing back towards the moon.
And within hours of launch, Commander Wiseman was on the radio to mission control. Now you might expect the communication to be about orbital mechanics, or perhaps a systems check, or the breathtaking view of Earth from 30,000 miles away.
Nope, it was about Outlook. Specifically, Commander Wiseman had 2 Microsoft Outlook applications on his Surface Pro laptop, and neither one was working.
No, really?
I kid you not. The exact words, broadcast live to the world, were, "I have 2 Microsoft Outlooks and neither one of those are working." Humanity's most technically sophisticated mission in half a century, and the astronauts couldn't check their email.
For the record, and this is technically interesting, this is actually a known Microsoft quirk. A couple of years ago, Microsoft renamed their Windows Mail app to Outlook. But Microsoft 365 subscribers also have an application called Outlook in their Office suite. So a Windows device can legitimately end up with 2 applications both called Outlook, and both apparently prone to misbehaving when there's no stable network connection.
Which, to be fair, is a reasonably accurate description of deep space.
The ground team resolved it by reloading Commander Wiseman's files in Outlook. Judd Freeling, the Artemis II Ascent flight director, said at a press conference that the issue was not uncommon. Which raises the question, if this is a known issue, how did it end up on a spacecraft heading for the moon?
Because it's Outlook, Kayla. No environment is inhospitable enough to stop Outlook from being temperamental.
And the beautiful irony is that this happened on April Fool's Day. NASA sends humans to the moon for the first time in 50 years, and the universe responds with a Microsoft software joke. You simply cannot make this up. And that, folks, brings us to the end of episode 81 of Priviso Live. From cyber warfare and agentic AI threats to Anthropic's accidental code leak and its Tamagotchi secret, to Claude broadcasting its own radio station, and finally to astronauts on their way to the moon who can't get Outlook to work. It has been quite a week in the worlds of technology, security, and space exploration.
The takeaway, as always, stay curious, stay skeptical, and make sure your information security frameworks are keeping pace with a world that is changing faster than any of us anticipated. And please, if you're going to send humans to the moon, test your email client first.
From me, Kayla, thank you for watching. If this episode made you laugh at least once, share it with a colleague who needs cheering up. And if it made you question your organization's cyber resilience, even better. That's exactly what we're here for.
If you want to hear more of the same, subscribe to Priviso Live on Apple, Samsung, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or YouTube.
And if you need security, risk, or ICT legislation advice, contact Priviso, consulting directly at admin@priviso.co.za.
And if you have topics you'd like us to cover, or questions about anything we discussed today, reach out to us. We love hearing from our listeners.
I'm Stephen.
And I'm Kayla. Thanks for listening.
Stay safe, everyone.